guys, we have a fun review today as we're talking The First Omen, a prequel to, in my opinion, one of the scariest movies of all time. 1976 is The Omen. I don't know what it is, if there was something in the air back in the late 60s, early 70s, when it comes to cranking out classic religious horror from Rosemary's Baby to The Omen to The Exorcist, but it has been pretty interesting in recent years seeing religious horror pop back up again as a popular genre, considering we also just recently had Late Night with the Devil and Immaculate, and on the other side of the spectrum, there's several monkey-related movies in theaters, from Godzilla x Kong and Monkey Man. Also, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is right around the corner too. Not that there's really a correlation or anything, I just find it so fascinating that religious horror and monkeys are kind of ruling the box office right now. When a young American woman is sent to Rome to begin a life of service to the church, she encounters a darkness that causes her to question her faith and uncovers a terrifying conspiracy that hopes to bring about the birth of evil incarnate. Considering the fact that The Omen is a revered classic of the horror genre, followed by very middling sequels and a remake, I wasn't exactly clamoring for a new entry in the Omen franchise, but yet The First Omen, being this prequel, managed to surprise me in a lot of ways. A fair amount of the runtime of The First Omen focuses on crafting a compelling mystery that we more or less know where it's going to inevitably lead if you've seen The Omen, yet the film does still manage to showcase quite a bit of flair in drawing you in deeper with unnervingly creepy, sinister visuals. As this film is orchestrated to be a companion piece to the 1976 film, I really enjoyed how the film tries to evoke with its stylistic choices the era of 70s horror. The film executes a lot of disturbing, slow burn scares, watching a character like Margaret slowly descend in this world of pure evil, while packing in an equal measure of religious horror, a solid amount of nasty, gory body horror. If you're somebody that's a tad bit squeamish as far as blood and gore and stuff like that, you might be in for a wild experience here. I don't want to give away what scenes in particular really grossed me out. There's one scene in particular that messed me up almost as much as that conclusion of Immaculate did. If you are going into a film like this expecting a ton of gore, it don't exactly lean into the gore all of that much. It still has that R rating, so you can expect some pretty nasty visuals here and there. When those sequences, when the gore is on full display, it is just so gruesome. Going into some massively dark places with it, which I have to commend the director Arkasha Stevenson, who I wasn't that familiar with going into the film, but honestly, I was very impressed overall by her direction, mainly in how you can tell she's trying to take big risks with the material and how she crafts tension, knowing exactly when to turn up the intensity for maximum effectiveness. Also, because of the fact the movie is female-centered, focused around giving birth to the Antichrist, I must say a feminine touch in the director's chair goes quite a long way in presenting realistic terror centered around pregnancy and birth. It was some pretty disturbing imagery that left a lasting impression on me after watching the film. Before going into the film, I was mildly aware of Nell Tiger-Free. She did play Myrcella Baratheon in Game of Thrones for a little while. Not a massive role by any means that truly showcases much range, so I was so impressed at her leading performance in The First Omen. She really commands the screen with this compelling performance, managing to tap into some real visceral physicality on the journey we go on with her character, unraveling these dark secrets around the church and how they're weaving things that are quite sinister, all leading up to an absolutely batshit insane third act. I'm not being hyperbolic when I say I genuinely have no idea how they were managing to pull off some of the stuff that we see visually in the third act, because this is a prequel after all, though it does try to build up this mystery angle. As long as you've seen the original Omen, you know exactly where this mystery is leading, knowing where the story has to conclude because it has to set in motion what we see in the 1976 film. I do think it fits in pretty well with the original story of The Omen, not having to tweak too many details to fit it into the narrative that we already know. There are a handful of things in the movie that I do feel like was kind of studio mandated references, mostly in how they feel so shoehorned in and not natural. Many references to The Omen, lines of dialogue, name drops. Certain moments just feel kind of weird because they're just replicating scenes that we saw in the 1976 film. Maybe some of that are for the few people that are going to see The First Omen without having seen the original film, but I can't imagine that's going to be a large portion of the audience seeing this. It's kind of this double-edged sword, knowing what happens in The Omen, because it does hinder my viewing experience, whirling up intrigue and mystery around these characters that you're almost certain you're never going to see ever again, taking a bit too long to unravel this mystery and and get answers in the build up to seeing Damien's birth. As I mentioned it earlier, it is kind of weird strategy-wise that we're having two films come out that are eerily similar in this and Immaculate. I mean, are there similarities between Immaculate and the First Omen? 100%. Arguably, I would say the first act of both films, almost beat for beat, is the exact same movie. At the end of the day, both of the movies have very similar subject matter to them. Perhaps it's by design if you want to go to the theater and have a very blasphemous double feature between Immaculate and the First Omen. All around though, I think the First Omen is one of the more enjoyable horror prequels. It definitely does capture much of the chilling, eerie feeling of the original film. It packs in a disturbing religious mystery that'll have you squirming in your seat a bit. I don't necessarily feel like this movie justifies its existence. I would be perfectly fine if the First Omen wasn't really a thing, but it was a much better result than it had any right to be. So I do have to give the film some credit that it ended up being at least a solid movie at the end of the day. I've heard my thoughts on the First Omen. Make sure you share your thoughts down below once you get a chance to check out the film. Did you like the First Omen? Did you not like it? Also, if you've seen Immaculate, which do you think is better between the First Omen and Immaculate? That is something I am really intrigued about in the comments, so make sure you share your thoughts down there. As always, thank you guys so much for checking out the videos. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you like on the video and also subscribe to the channel so you're up to date with reviews, reactions, unboxings, and more. Till next time, I'll see you guys later.